Before, what I had people do is have this guy walk across the screen, but that ended up being too hard and too much of painstaking work. So what we'll do is just have it come in, kind of like not necessarily walk, but kind of walk into the screen, and we'll see how we can deal with that. But before I move on, what I want to do is cut the rest of this warm layer, my timeline, split the layer and delete it because I don't really need it anymore after it's done walking. So I'm going to import my business guy clip. One of my students one year named it Shady Business Guy because the way all the students make it walk and the way this image is kind of set up, he walks like he's like being kind of shady. So with this, you have to remember just kind of wherever the joints are and wherever you want it to move, that's where you need to put the puppet pin tool. So this is another way of making your character walk. I mean, the way I showed you for the midterm project is really the correct way to do it. But if you want to just do like a lazy, quick walk scene, you can do it this way. And the lazy, quick walk scene will be basically one whole image. So you're not cutting up your image of a person if you want to just simply animate it like that. So you're this image of this business guy is basically one flattened or one layer instead of like all the different layers being in limbs. It's, each limbs or each movable part being in its own layer. The flip side of that is now we got 13 pins because each area that the guy needs to move will have a pin. So what I'm going to do is, again, select all of these, expand them, and we're going to start off with this one and this pose, and just kind of go a couple of frames. If you remember doing the walk cycle, we'll just swing it. Now, here's the thing. This suitcase is behind the guy. It should be in front of the guy, right? So we're going to use something called, if I can remember it correctly, overlap pin. So we click on this and click overlap pin, and that's basically saying that we want this to be in the front instead of in the back. So we control the overlap. So it's going to take all these triangles when I clicked. Let me do that again. This is the original position. Let's go back to the original position. I mean, I'm looking at it here because I wanted to you know, not go behind his butt, but be in the front of his hip. So we're going to go back to the front, beginning of where the first set of puppet pins are, and using our overlap pin, I'm going to click on this. That means that this part is going to overlap or be in front. And actually, while we're at it, we'll click on this one as well because we want this foot to always be in the front. So now, if we're finished with the overlap pin, now if we kind of go a few frames, we're still gonna get into a little bit of trouble here, but it's okay. I'm gonna go every 2 frames. So I'm at what, 1604. 1604. We'll go every 4 frames actually. So 4 frames. And again, this is the annoying part, is that you have to keyframe all the other things, or they're going to also do some wacky movements when you change them later. Then another 4 frames. Oops, I haven't really done all of it. So he's gonna go this way, his arms. See how there's a slight little bend right there? It looks a little weird. You can fix that using several techniques. And at this point, I want him to kind of move his legs. way to fix these, there's a couple of ways you can use the starch pin, which basically, you know how if you starch your clothes, they get stiffer? That's basically what that is doing. And then the opposite of starch is to use the bend pin, which kind of makes it less stiff and more bendy. So this is what we've got so far. And then we're going to go another 4 frames. Let's just plant the feet at this point. And again, this ain't perfect because we're not really doing a perfected walk cycle. We're just doing the best we could with our business guy. But the cool part about this, see how it's overlapping here and it's overlapping too much. So now I'm going to go back to my overlap tool and and tell it that this needs to be overlapped a bit more. So you're going to get issues like that if you try to um, do really, really fancy movements. So at this point, maybe I don't want it to overlap anymore. So I will not, I'll click that off. You'll notice that when you have it overlap with the overlap tool, that will be white. If I don't want it to overlap anymore, I'll click this again, and that will be not white. It'll be outlined. So you can try a couple of steps, but really what I want you to do with Puppet, with the business guy, is maybe, just kind of have it shake, um, do a dance or something. Nothing too fancy because this kind of gets really tedious. But I just want you to kind of see how you can use the puppet pin to have some simple motions in your characters. So maybe he could just be dancing and moving his body. And the best thing to do is really just go every 2 frames. I didn't add the keyframes for the other parts, but it's okay because I'm actually just moving all of it. So I'm moving all of the keyframes, and that's why I'm not bothering to manually add keyframes. But you just want to get me for the assignment. I just want to see like a few seconds of um, movement, like dancing or shaking or whatever you can come up with, um, just to show me that you are, getting the point of the puppet tool. You can also copy and paste keyframes too to make your um, movement work better or be easier to control or repetitive if you want cycles. See that, like once I have the initial movements down, I can just basically, so I'm going to attempt to copy all of these keyframes and see if I could basically get them to. So the question is, you can't copy them all at once. You have to copy them pin by pin. So, just a few seconds of wiggling movement and things like that. So this is how you could get simple character movements, but also um, some, repetitive movements as well. There are, depending on how you put your character together, you can theoretically just use the puppet pin tool to animate your character, but I would just stick to the way we learned it for the midterm. So do you all see how that works, specifically with our character versus our, what we started off with the finger and then moving up to the bird and the character? All right, so this is basically what you're doing for your assignment this week.